Keeping integrity is how we show where we stand on the supreme issue facing mankind today. How can we maintain our steadfastness despite increasing pressure from the devil and from this wicked system of things? Listen carefully as Brother Christian Cook, service overseer in the Elliotsburg, Pennsylvania congregation, presents the next part on our program. It is entitled, Walk in the Way of Integrity.
What does it mean to walk in the way of integrity? The Hebrew term has the root meaning of that which is complete or whole, and it's often used in reference to the animals that were to be sacrificed to Jehovah. Now, in regards to humans and their integrity to Jehovah, this term carries the thought of moral soundness or completeness, a completeness of heart devotion to Jehovah. So then, what would this completeness of heart devotion to Jehovah call for on our part? Let's take our Bibles and look at Psalms 119, verses 1 through 3. That's Psalms 119, verses 1 through 3. And here, notice it reads, Happy are the ones faultless in their way, the ones walking in the law of Jehovah. Happy are those observing His reminders. With all the heart they keep searching for Him. Really, they have practiced no unrighteousness. In His ways they have walked. Integrity calls for what's talked about right here. That's constantly searching to know Jehovah, His will, and then walking in His ways. Now, with integrity carrying this thought of completeness, we can see that it's not restricted to just one aspect of human living or conduct. It doesn't apply to just matters of an obviously religious nature. You see, walking in the way of integrity is a way of life. A way of life that reflects unswerving devotion to righteousness in every facet of our life. Now, this will require on our part right heart motivation along with proper action. Integrity is really embraced at the words of Matthew chapter 22 and verse 37. We remember that. It tells us we must love Jehovah our God with our whole heart, our whole soul, our whole mind. Now let's say you had a sailboat and you're in the middle of the ocean. Would you be satisfied with only the front half being watertight? Maybe 3/4 of it is watertight. That's a good amount. Well, how about all of it's watertight except for one hole about the size of your fist? That wouldn't be satisfactory, would it? You would want it completely watertight because it would mean your life. Walking in the way of integrity, having that completeness of heart devotion to Jehovah, will mean our life. It brings Jehovah's approval. So how is our integrity? Is it seaworthy or is it fraught with holes? Now, on the surface, it may seem like, well, this is an easy decision to want to walk in the way of integrity. We know it's the right thing to do. There are many blessings, many benefits from doing it. But the fact is that walking in the way of integrity today is a challenge. 1 John 5:19 tells us why. It's because the whole world is lying in the power of the wicked one. And what is that wicked one, Satan, promoting? Is he promoting complete heart devotion to Jehovah? Hardly. Is he promoting moral soundness? No, the world is surrounded by low morals. Consider 2 Timothy 3:1-5, where it describes the traits of humans that we would find in the last days. It talks about those who are self-assuming and haughty and blasphemers, slanderers, those who are fierce, without love of goodness. Does that sound like unswerving devotion to righteousness? On the contrary, these are qualities in opposition to integrity. And Satan promotes these. Yes, Satan is using everything in this system to try to break our integrity today. He does this by means of persecution, opposition, worldly influence, and sinful tendencies. Yet, despite all these pressures from Satan, each and every one of us here can walk in the way of integrity. Just think of others in the past who have done this. Of course, Jesus Christ was a perfect example. We oftentimes think of Job as a good example of a man who walked in integrity. But think about David. King David walked in integrity. Turn your Bibles to Psalm 26 And notice what he says about his integrity. That's Psalms 26 and verse 1. And keep your marker there because we'll be referring to this psalm. He says, "Judge me, O Jehovah, for I myself have walked in my own integrity, and in Jehovah I have trusted that I may not wobble." Wouldn't we like to say as David that we have walked in integrity, that we have trusted in Jehovah? You see, David was concerned with his uprightness before Jehovah because he knew that integrity was not something that you automatically have. You have to work to develop it. And once you have it, you have to maintain it. David goes on to show in this 26th Psalm what can help to build and maintain our integrity. It's much like maintaining that boat and keeping it seaworthy. Let's note the 6 steps that David points out. Look at our first step there in verse 2. He says, "Examine me, O Jehovah, and put me to the test. Refine my kidneys and my heart." Now, a boat needs regular and thorough inspection and examination. Perhaps we may even have a specialist look at it, and he may make us aware of any potential problems. David asked Jehovah to examine his motives in his heart. Do we, through prayer, invite Jehovah to examine us, our heart, and our motives? How should we feel about such an examination? Well, if someone was inspecting your boat and they found a potential problem, would we be incensed that they would point this out to us? Well, certainly we'd be grateful because we know that fixing that problem could mean our safety out in the ocean. Certainly we need to be grateful to Jehovah when, through prayerfully talking with Him, we realize there are areas that we need to work on. We should view it as a way of refinement, as a way to improve our integrity. Look at our second point in verse 3. He says, "For your loving kindness is in front of my eyes, and I have walked in your truth." Reflecting on the joys of sailing and the places that you could go would certainly motivate you to take care of this boat, to learn how to use it properly and to maintain it. Are we keeping before our eyes Jehovah's acts of loving kindness? Perhaps those future blessings, thinking about our worldwide brotherhood and our spiritual paradise? Doing so can motivate us to continue to walk in the way of integrity. Notice how David said, too, he has walked in God's truth. How could we walk in God's truth unless we knew Jehovah, know Him? How can we do this unless we have knowledge of His Word? You see, walking in God's truth, we would be students of God's Word, the Bible. We would be reading the Bible regularly on a daily basis. Are we doing this? Perhaps a schedule in which we would mark off the days of the calendar in which we've read the Bible would help, because certainly we want to keep before our eyes God's loving acts of kindness and His Word, the Bible. And this can help us to maintain our integrity. Look at our third point in verses 4 and 5. David says, "I have not sat with men of untruth, and with those who hide what they are, I do not come in. I have hated the congregation of evildoers, and with the wicked ones I do not sit." Now, a sailor will take every precaution to avoid damaging his boat, whether it's avoiding reefs and sandbars, perhaps a rocky coast, or maybe even storms that may be in a certain area of the ocean. David avoided association that could damage his integrity. He hated such. He no doubt knew the truth of what was stated many years later by Paul, and that is, bad associations, you can finish it, can't you? Spoils useful habits. Do we hate bad association as David did? Or do we perhaps not mind the men of untruth? Perhaps we tolerate the wicked ones. We may find them exciting or intriguing in some way. Is that the case with us about perhaps our workmates, our schoolmates, ones that we associate with through the television and the radio? A shrewd and discerning sailor will consult the charts and note the signs of any underlying dangers, and then will avoid them. Are we shrewd to recognize the dangers of ones who may hide what they really are by feigning friendship with us? Are we shrewd to recognize apostates and their real motive to draw us away from Jehovah? There's a saying, it's hard to soar like an eagle when you're surrounded by a flock of turkeys. Likewise, it's hard to maintain your integrity when you surround yourself with those who have no integrity. Let's look at our fourth point in verse 6. David says, I shall wash my hands in innocency itself, and I will march around your altar, O Jehovah. Having a seaworthy boat that's always ready to go requires devotion. It's not something you can do one year and then put off and take a vacation and do it another year. Well, David here was proclaiming his devotion to Jehovah when he said that he was marching around God's altar. How do we show our devotion to God and march around God's altar today? It's by exercising faith in Jesus' sacrifice. You see, really, for our devotion to be accepted by Jehovah, we have to exercise faith in that sacrifice of Jesus. It's like being devoted to that boat, but really not thinking it can float. You see, Jesus is the basis for our even having devotion to Jehovah. Look at our fifth point in verse 7. To cause thanksgiving to be heard aloud, and to declare all your wonderful works. Now you'll find that an owner of a beautifully maintained boat is always ready to talk about it. The care he's put into it, the work he has in it, the places he's gone, and the adventures that he's had. The work that David pointed to here is the preaching of the good news of the kingdom. Basically, we're talking to people about all the benefits of walking in the way of integrity. It builds confidence in our way of living. Just think about it. When we meet people in the field, what do we oftentimes find? We find people who are sighing and groaning over the detestable things of this world. They're looking for a hope for the future. They have troubles that they would like to see solutions to. And when we think of our lives and what Jehovah has given us, it should build our appreciation for that integrity that we have and should encourage us to continue to maintain it. Are we willing and eager to talk about that? David was. He wanted to cause thanksgiving to be heard. He wanted to declare all of God's wonderful works. Do we feel the same way? Do we take every opportunity, whether formally or informally, to share with others what we know about Jehovah? You see, this is a protection for us, because in helping others, we're less likely to be self-centered and thinking only of our own problems. And we're really protected from conforming to the world, because now we're kept away from the wicked activities by being busy in the ministry. Let's look at our sixth point in verse 8. Jehovah, I have loved the dwelling of your house, in the place of the residing of your glory. The boat's maintenance that is necessary in keeping it seaworthy is oftentimes routine. Day in, day out, the work of maintenance has to be done, preventing corrosion from the salty water, perhaps scraping and painting, sealing and cleaning it. 5 times a week, through our Christian meetings, our integrity, you might say, gets the decks swabbed. Our corrosive influences are cleaned out. And several times a year at our assemblies and conventions, you might say, our integrity goes into dry dock to get a thorough checkup. The information and association that we have here fortifies our integrity. We would not want to miss any opportunity for this maintenance of our integrity. Are we regularly here at the meetings, diligently taking in this knowledge that can help us? Well, some may say, oftentimes it's the same information. Like saying, I just swabbed the deck the other day. I just cleaned those parts. But remember, the corrosive elements from the sea are continuously drifting in through the air and sea spray. It's just like the influences of this world. The spirit of the world is all around us, drifting in upon us, trying to corrode us. And that's why we need these meetings. So how should we view these reminders? Take a look at Psalms 119, verse 167. At Psalms 119, verse 167. Here it says, my soul has kept your reminders, and I love them exceedingly. Do we love Jehovah's reminders? Have we grown to love the association that we have here at our meetings and our conventions and our assemblies? Certainly this will go a long way in helping us to maintain our integrity. So do we understand what David outlined would help us in maintaining our integrity? Let's review. That first point. prayerfully have Jehovah examine us and refine us. 2, take in knowledge of God's Word and keep those loving acts of kindness before our eyes. 3, hate that bad association and avoid it. 4, exercise faith in Jesus' sacrifice and show our devotion to Jehovah. 5, share zealously in the ministry. And 6, fortify ourselves through our meetings, our assemblies, and our conventions. Failure to take these steps and then discontinue walking in the way of integrity will be disastrous for us. David realized this at Psalm 26. Notice verse 9 and 10, what he said. He said, "Do not take away my soul along with sinners, nor my life along with blood-guilty men, in whose hands there is loose conduct, and whose right hand is full of bribery." David pleaded with Jehovah that he wouldn't be found among those sinners who were not walking in integrity and who would end up in death. You see, death is the end result of not walking in integrity. And today, one of the biggest traps that can lead to death is mentioned there in verse 10. Loose conduct. The key is don't let the glue set up. Let me explain. The world is experiencing a flood of immoral practices in magazines and movies that promote loose conduct. The Internet is often a means of this association with evil. Its pornography will lead to loose conduct. Satan tries to get this badness, whether it's a thought or an idea or something that's quite innocent, to stick to us, to be glued to us. Removal of it immediately is important. You see, without integrity, without that moral soundness, without that completeness of heart devotion to Jehovah, we might just allow that thought or idea to linger, to stick, and let the glue set up. But once it is stuck, it now is difficult to remove because the glue has hardened. And at this time, Satan has prepared us to allow other, bigger, and badder things to stick to us. Youth in particular are susceptible to these immoral influences. With hormones in action and the bloom of youth in progress, Satan takes advantage of this situation. Teenagers today are led to think that they must date. But becoming romantically involved while too young to marry, many soon become involved in loose conduct or fornication. You see, young ones, you're only building up desires that should only be satisfied when married, and something will give. Young ones, do not feel that you're like Teflon and nothing will stick to me. Is that really walking in the way of integrity, keeping complete heart devotion to Jehovah? And adults, we are not immune to what Satan tries to stick to us. His influences can lead to infidelity and divorce. A lack of integrity can also show up in other ways, perhaps dishonest business practices and a tendency to make self-centered decisions. Remember Amos 5:15, where it says, "Hate what is bad and love what is good." Is our lack of integrity allowing things to stick to us? Then we need to deepen our heartfelt love for Jehovah, maintain our integrity, and avert disaster. Is it not a source of great encouragement today to look around this convention and see the thousands of the more than 6 million who are walking in the way of integrity? Let's talk with some who are doing just that. First, we have with us Sean Henry. He's from the Lake Marburg congregation in Pennsylvania, and he is 14 in the 8th grade, and Sean's been baptized for 2 years. Let me ask Sean, while growing up, what have your parents done to help build your integrity?
Well, they've done many things for me, but 3 that I can think of are family study. We have that regularly on Monday nights. Field service, we're out almost every week, and we try to pioneer at least 1 month during the summer. And meeting attendance, we're at the meeting almost every week unless we're sick.
Good. Now, school presents many challenges, Sean, to your integrity. What has been a help in protecting you?
Well, making it known that I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses has certainly been a big help. And almost every kid in my class this year knows that I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I also try to do this through informal witnessing.
All right, very good. But now, earlier this year, what kind of situation did you face?
Well, I faced a situation similar to that with Joseph and Potiphar's wife. Only in my case, 3 girls tried to make physical advances toward me.
Now, did that surprise you?
Well, yes, I was shocked. I was stunned. And I knew that it wasn't right in Jehovah's eyes.
So how did you cope?
Well, as you can imagine, this was a very disturbing experience. I coped with fervent and regular prayer to Jehovah, and also by going to my parents. I knew that they could help me.
Well, that's good. Now, what have you learned that has helped maintain your integrity then?
Well, although I was careful about who I associated with before, I'm now even more careful of who is even around me. And I also learned that you need to draw strength from Jehovah and maintain your integrity, because, you think something like this can't happen, but in reality, it can.
All right. Thank you, Brother Henry. This test on Brother Henry's integrity was not disastrous because his integrity had already been built up. Parents, consider your role in building integrity in your children. Next, we have Brother Sullivan from the Elliottsburg, Pennsylvania congregation. He is a ministerial servant with a wife and 2 young children. Brother Sullivan, what problem had been eroding your integrity?
Well, Brother Cook, we had a thief in our house.
A thief. Explain yourself.
The computer. I was spending too much time on the internet, just out looking at homes or looking at cars or even places to go on vacation.
Now, to what degree did this become a problem for you?
Well, it was nothing for me to come home from the meetings and log onto the internet for hours at a time. I had plenty of time to surf the web, but I had trouble getting my watchtower done.
Now, did you fully realize how bad it had become?
No, I didn't. In all honesty, I was clueless to it.
So how did you begin to see the reality of the situation?
My wife. I can still hear her saying, "I wish you would please just turn that thing off."
So then what steps did you take to overcome this problem?
Well, really what we did, we took 3 steps. First, we moved the computer to an area in the house where it's still very visible, but it's at an inconvenient location. Secondly, we changed our internet plan from unlimited access to a plan that has very limited access. And finally, I myself had to change. When logging on, I have a specific website in mind. I go in there, I get the information that I'm looking for, and then I log off.
So obviously then you've taken a different view of the internet.
Yes, I've really had to take to heart the counsel there at Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 and 16, where it tells us to keep strict watch as to how we walk and to buy out the opportune time. I really view it as a thief of my time.
So then how has gaining control of this then helped to improve your integrity?
Well, it's obviously given me more time for Jehovah to prepare for the meetings, more time for my family. And of course, those things have improved my relationship with Jehovah now that I'm taking care of my Christian responsibilities.
Thank you, Brother Sullivan. Are we honest about ourselves and the threats to our integrity? Brother Sullivan humbly took steps to avert that potential disaster. Now, others may be of assistance in helping us to walk in the way of integrity. Notice here an elder, Brother Morrison, and a young brother, Brother Regal, are returning from a Bible study. And he takes advantage of the situation to talk with this brother about some questionable association.
Well, Joel, I'd like to thank you for coming with me on the Bible study this afternoon. You had a number of good comments from Mr. Studious.
Well, thank you, Brother Morrison, and thanks for inviting me. I think it's been a few weeks since we worked together.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go with you. There's something else I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Well, I have a situation I'd like your opinion on.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Joel, I'd like to know what you would do if you saw a good friend of yours in his car going down a road that you knew for sure that the bridge was out.
Oh, well, I'd chase after him and do anything I could to get him to try and pull over.
That makes sense. That's what I would do, Joel. Now, just keep that in mind. If you would please, open your Bible to Psalm 26, verses 9 and 10. And when you get that, Joel, would you read that, please?
Okay. It says, "Do not take away my soul along with sinners, nor my life along with blood-guilty men, in whose hands there is loose conduct, and whose right hand is full of bribery."
Now let's look down through that, Joel. It mentions sinners, blood-guilty men, those responsible for loose conduct, and those full of bribery. Now, if you were to characterize these people that David is describing here, what would they be?
I'd say bad associates.
Okay, good answer. Now, how would you define a bad associate?
Anyone who isn't a worshiper of Jehovah.
Okay. Now, Joel, listen carefully to the next question. Have you been associating with people like David described here lately?
Well, once in a while, some guys and girls from work and some friends from school.
Guys and girls from work, okay. Well, Joel, what did you just define as a bad associate just a moment ago?
Someone who isn't a worshiper of Jehovah?
Are these people worshipers of Jehovah?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Now, Joel, go back up to verse number 9 and look what sobering advice David gives us here that at the beginning of that verse. What does he tell us?
He said, "Do not take away my soul along with sinners."
What did he say could happen to us if we continue to associate with people like this?
And we could lose our life.
Yeah. Now, Joel, have you figured out who's in the car going down the road with the bridge out yet?
Yeah, I think I have. It's me, isn't it?
Yeah, it is you, Joel. So, the question is, are you going to turn the car around, as it were, and apply this advice?
Oh, I am going to give it a lot of thought.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. I'll tell you what, next week, why don't you come with me on the Bible study again? And then in the meantime, what I would like you to do is view the video. Young people ask, how can I make real friends? Would you do that?
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I'd like that.
Okay, I'll see you at the meeting tomorrow.
Ask yourself, are you willing to accept the help of someone who's concerned about our integrity? Brother Riga will benefit if he does. When we walk in the way of integrity, we gain the assurance of Jehovah. But we accomplish even more than that. You see, by walking in the way of integrity, we give God glory. Others may not notice, but every time we remove something Satan's trying to stick to us, Jehovah notices. Jesus notices, the heavenly creatures notice, and certainly Satan realizes that you haven't let it stick. Yes, Jehovah sees all the evidence of our moral soundness, of our complete heart devotion to Him, yes, of our integrity. The sum total of all those little ways in which we walk in integrity will be noticed by others, and they'll be moved to give God glory because of our example. So ask, does our manner of life show to Jehovah that we respect and appreciate the sovereignty of God in every aspect of our life? Satan is working against us. Do not allow him to entice you into any sticky situations that could jeopardize your walking in integrity. Take those 6 steps that David spoke of so as to maintain your integrity. And we want to do this so that we can reflect those final words of David there at Psalm 26, verses 11 and 12. Notice those words. David says, "As for me and my integrity I shall walk. O redeem me and show me favor. My own foot will certainly stand on a level place. Among the congregated throngs I shall bless Jehovah." David's goal was to stand on a level place, a place of stability, and to associate with others who were also walking in integrity. A true test of a boat's seaworthiness is not when it is out of the water. It's when it's in the midst of the ocean during a storm. Is our integrity ready to face the storms of these last days? Be determined to give God glory by walking in the way of integrity.
Thank you, Brother Cook, and your participants for encouraging us to use Jehovah's provisions to help us maintain our integrity in these last days.